Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour here. Make sure you stay tuned. We got Doogie here to talk a little bit of Wolves, a little bit of Vikings. And then once the game resumes, he's going to jump off and it'll be Myles and I previewing the next game for the Vikings against the Packers. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour. We got a special guest on tonight, the one, the only Doogie. How you doing, Doogs?
I'm doing all right, Ryan. There's nothing special about me. Trust me. Just ask my wife. She'll tell you. I am as average as it gets, but I appreciate you guys having me back.
Yeah, well, I think you have a lot of fans in this city. You provide a lot of great content, very engaging on Twitter. I think most of us common fans are very appreciative of what you do for Minnesota sports and the fandom here in town. So,
That's
Myles, how are
very
we
kind.
doing today?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's always great to have Doogie on. I'm glad to be able to join tonight because I'm normally on Tuesdays, so my show's on Tuesday. So to be on with you guys, I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a treat to have Myles on the show as well. My normal co-host Matt couldn't make it tonight, so thank you, Myles, for filling in. I really appreciate it. Um, Doogie, I know we got you for a short amount of time. You got a lot of work to do with the Wolves game on and all this Viking stuff that's happening. So I want to just dive in right away if we could. Obviously, it's a Viking show, but I'd be remiss not to talk a little Wolves, just given I know you're pretty well in tune with them. And there's a lot happening right now with them. I know they're on kind of a rough patch right now in terms of, at least our expectations as fans. But there's some interesting content that I'd like to at least talk about, and I'm sure Myles would as well. First on the docket here is just trades, right? Obviously, we started this season off kind of hot, right? We had a couple game win streak, and then that that momentum died down. We're on I think we're losing 4 of the last 5 right now, and the team isn't seem to gel well right now. Are there any? I know there was high expectations. So is there any sort of trade rumors going on? I know the big one was Simmons all summer long, and even into the season with him not playing. As well as, we've heard Myles Turner, we've heard, a variety of, I think we're playing against him tonight, Bagley. Bagley. Is there anything going on right now in the trade front that you're hearing?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Ryan, I talked to a league executive. He's in the front office of an Eastern Conference team, a logical trade partner for the Wolves. I had a nice conversation with this individual earlier this week. He said they have not had any dialogue with the Wolves. I can tell you, Sachin Gupta, the new Wolves boss, would still love to get his hands on Ben Simmons. Nothing has changed on that front, but nothing has changed from Philadelphia's standpoint either, in terms of them not having interest in D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, who the Wolves are willing to offer up. Anthony Edwards off limits, Karl Anthony Towns off limits. In terms of Sacramento, I have not heard buzz on Marvin Bagley. I don't think there's interest there. Myles Turner, sure. But at this point, I think Indiana still wants to see what they have. A lot of teams really want to see what they have for a good 20-ish games. Now, there are certain teams, right? Detroit, Houston, a few others. They know, at best, they're winning, 20 games, 21 games, 22 games. But a team like Indiana, after giving Rick Carlisle 4 years, about $30 million for him to come back to a franchise he coached a really long time ago. They want to see what they have with this core. But can I tell you that there are fans of Myles Turner here in Minnesota? 100%. And I can tell you, Sachin Gupta has been on the phone a bunch. Now, more so with executives that he doesn't have a good relationship with. Like, he's really tight with Raphael Stone in Houston. He's really tight with Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. Now, Daryl knows where Sachin stands on Ben Simmons. But the point is, it's not like Sachin needs to reach out to those individuals, a bunch. I mean, he's reaching out to some front offices where he just doesn't have those relationships. I imagine, Ryan, when, things ramp up is December 15th, when guys who signed in the summer are trade eligible. So I think December 15th, about a month from now, is a date to circle. But I can promise you, Sachin Gupta is going to try to be active. He is well aware this is the smallest roster in the NBA. I mean, just even today in the first half, Sacramento double-digit offensive rebounds. I promise Gupta is well aware of the warts that the roster has.
Absolutely. Yes. And one of those warts, it seems like at least, is there's been some at least rumors that Towns is super unhappy right now. Again, I don't know if there's any truth to those rumors, but you have some talking heads at ESPN and whatnot talking about how he's unhappy, doesn't like taking a backseat to Anthony Edwards. Is there any truth to any of those rumors?
There's truth to all rumors, Ryan.
Always a little bit of truth in some of that stuff, right? I mean, there's always when some of that fire gets out there, especially with some of the national talking heads. I mean, I can tell you that Cat over the summer had a conversation with somebody that used to be the Wolves organization, somebody he has a tight relationship with, more so just wondering about his future, just wondering if he can win long-term here. Now, that being said, I am positive Cat is being genuine when he says he is forever indebted to the Saunders family. That way back when the late Flip Saunders could have gone with Jahlil Okafor with the number 1 overall pick. He decided late to switch that stance, decided to take Karl Anthony Towns. Cat feels forever indebted to Flip, to Ryan, to Debbie Saunders, to all the Saunders. And so, more than anything, Cat would like to win here, not win somewhere else. But at some point, this is year 7. He's only been All-NBA one time. He's only been to the playoffs one time. he is constantly reminded he made the playoffs in large part because of Jimmy Butler. He wants to get rid of that narrative. But do I sense that Cat is close to the point of asking for a trade, that he's truly unhappy? No. He had a big birthday party on Monday night. Just about the entire Wolves team was there. I mean, they were practically holding hands, singing Kumbaya. I don't think, that sort of, gathering happens if Cat was really pissed off with a lot of his team. So I don't think we're there yet. But if they keep losing games in a year where there are, relatively high expectations, heck, for them, the bar is so low. When I say high expectations, them being one of the top 10 in the Western Conference, being able to play in the play-in tournament, that's a realistic goal. They were openly in Miami, the trip, by the way, that they got fined $250,000 for, but they were openly talking in Miami about making the playoffs. Now, 10 out of 15 make it, right? You have a 67% chance to make the playoffs, but they were openly talking about the playoffs mid-September, that Miami bonding trip. So if they don't meet those expectations, I think next summer could be very, very fascinating.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I see the chat lighting up. They're not loving the Timberwolves talk, of course, as a Vikings show. Let's transition over to the Vikings here. First question I wanted to ask is, obviously, the last time we spoke with you on this show, you had mentioned that the expectations are very high. Like, it's obviously high for this fan base, hopefully all the time, right? But internally, especially amongst the brass, it was extremely high, like deep playoff run or bust type mentality. Obviously, the season hasn't gone as expected, at least up to this point. Do you have any sense of where the emotions are internally with the brass right now?
Well, I mean, I sense that the emotions are still, to the point of, hey, like, we've had a lead of 7 points or more in every game. There's not any other team that can claim that. So there are still very high expectations, even if it's with them being the 6 or the 7 seed. If winning the NFC North is not very realistic, that they feel like, hey, we assembled this roster. This roster is fully capable. And hey, we can still make a run deep into January. So I don't think they've come off that line of thinking. Now, it's entirely possible they're not one of the 7 playoff teams in the NFC. I think November 28th will go a long way in determining their fate. Can they win in San Francisco? Now, the Vikings have been better on the road than at home, but I just think that November 28th game, a week from Sunday, as big as Sunday is, and I'm looking forward, trust me, I always look forward to when the Packers come here, when the Vikings go to Lambeau Field. But I just think that November 28th game in Santa Clara against the 49ers is going to go a long way in determining whether the Vikings make the playoffs. But I'm positive the Wolves still feel like this roster is fully capable of making a deep run in January.
Awesome. Myles?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Adam Thielen. So this is kind of I don't want to bring up the negative because they did win on Sunday and they had an impressive win. But Adam Thielen is someone I've kept an eye on throughout the season just because, we saw the Diggs fall in 2019. I've been kind of seeing some trends and some things with Adam Thielen as the season's gone on that maybe could fly under the radar because he's not the kind of guy that wants to bring that kind of attention on himself. But I'm not saying that there's any rumblings of anything of Adam Thielen wanting out of Minnesota. I mean, he's a Minnesota kid, but you could tell there's frustration there. Even on Sunday, I know they won, but he wasn't a big part of the success on Sunday. Not that he didn't have he didn't play a role, but are you saying anything or hearing anything on that front, Doogie, that there might be some frustrations there, and maybe who he has the frustrations with?
Frustrations, Myles, for a while. I mean, predating even this season. But yeah, this season, I think there's some frustration. I found it pretty fascinating today when Adam, now it might have been his passive way of saying it, but Adam was relatively frontal, end of his media availability late this morning, saying, hey, that recipe of how we won Sunday in Los Angeles, that aggressive nature, that needs to carry over. And so I think there's been times where Adam feels like he hasn't gotten enough targets, that Justin Jefferson hasn't gotten enough targets. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. But I think he knows how to channel some of that frustration. Yeah. And yeah, publicly, he's always going to be a team first guy. You're not going to find Adam Thielen saying anything, in a selfish manner. You're just not. I mean, he's a really smart guy. He knows how to pick and choose his words very carefully. But yeah, do I think there's some frustration there, Myles? 100%.
Yeah, I think Vikings Twitter kind of went into a frenzy this afternoon when there's talk that maybe we had a bunch of COVID situations popping up, false positives, real positives. I'm not quite sure. Can you shed any light on any of that information? I know we were kind of talking about a pre-show, but I'm sure our fans would love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. For the audience, 100% I can. Yeah, so I'm told that Brian O'Neill tested positive this morning, but then tested negative a couple hours later. He was held out of practice. He'll undergo another test tomorrow. So we'll wait and see what that test says, but there is a level of confidence that the original test was a false positive. Same with DJ Wanham. I am waiting to hear back on Mackenzie Alexander and Chris Herndon. I can tell you from a couple different sources, I was told, many hours ago that there were 4 false positives. But I can't tell you with 100% certainty because I'm waiting for more information whether the other 2 are Alexander and Herndon. But looking at the injury report for today, with those 2 guys listed as non-participants, non-injury related, I'm connecting some logical dots. But I can tell you, I'm told on Wanham and O'Neill, both tested positive, then tested negative. So we'll have to just wait and see what the testing shows us tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's good news, I guess. Yeah. Go ahead, Myles.
I was just going to ask about the offensive line, Doogie. So Mike Zimmer talked about, might have been yesterday or today, I can't remember, about he was asked about Garrett Bradbury coming back and how Mason Cole's been playing. Do you have any sense of what the Vikings' thoughts or position might be there at center and maybe even right guard with the struggles of Oli Udoh, if they like Mason Cole and obviously they like Garrett Bradbury as much as he struggled?
Yeah, Myles, I've tried to check on that. Is Garrett getting all the first team reps today? And I haven't heard anything back yet. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't have Mason Cole somewhere in that mix. If you want to shift him over to guard, fine. But Mason Cole needs to be one of their 5 offensive linemen, starting offensive linemen on Sunday. I don't know how you would push him back to the bench. But I'm waiting to hear more information on that. I'd love to tell you that I have every answer. I don't always have every answer. I certainly have tried to find that answer. I can tell you Kirk Cousins told us this morning that Garrett was the first team center during the walkthrough, but that doesn't necessarily tell us, that definitively Sunday Garrett Bradbury, is regaining his starting job. So I'll continue to work on that. If people want to follow me on Twitter or watch Channel 5, or I'll be on again tomorrow morning with Judd Zolgad and Phil Mackey on Score North. If I get an update, I'll certainly put it out there. I'm just telling you, my own personal opinion, Myles, is Mason Cole needs to be on the field on Sunday. Yeah. Preferably for me, I haven't seen anything from Garrett Bradbury to suggest that he should regain his starting job. I would just keep rolling with what they have. I know the penalties with Udoh have started to stack up, but I don't think I'd be messing with multiple positions, moving then Cole to guard. That's not something I would do. I would keep Udoh at guard, and I would keep Cole at center.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. I'm with you, Doogie. I mean, I just think that once you have, some continuity happening specifically with Cole at center, I mean, Bradbury has been a disappointment, unfortunately, and it is what it is. And I understand maybe you want to stick with your younger guy. Well, Mason Cole's younger too. He's younger than Bradbury. So I'm not quite sure, why somebody who's producing at a higher caliber is going to be sat outside of just the fact that he was a first round pick and you don't want to admit defeat on it yet. And that kind of brings me to the next point.
Everything.
Maybe the front office does, some of the conversations Rick has with Mike, but I don't think Mike's looking at it saying, oh, Garrett, former first round pick, okay, automatically gets his starting job back. There's no way Mike looks at it like that.
Yeah, we'll know for sure in the offseason when they don't pick up, assuming they don't pick up his 5th-year option.
Right.
Yeah, well, and so still wondering who's going to make that decision, right? Is Rick for sure back next year? I think if Rick is back, I actually could see a scenario where they exercise that fifth-year option, that they'll give him a little bit more leash, that this front office isn't going to admit the mistake. But if it's not Rick making the decision, to me, it's a no-brainer. You don't exercise the fifth-year option.
I suppose that's a good point, because you hold on real quick, Ryan. You track back to Mike Hughes, Mike Hughes, Laquan Treadwell, all those failed first round picks, and then Garrett Bradbury is supposed to be a stabilizing force, and he just hasn't been. So I could see that. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
now
And
I will say this much: like, I was going back through some old video from last year, because tonight at 10 o'clock during our sportscast on Channel 5, we're doing a little something on Dalvin Cook. So I went back and pulled some video of like Dalvin last year, Lambeau Field. It was a beautifully executed screen. Like, Garrett Bradbury can accelerate in the screen game. We haven't seen enough of that this year. Is that the Gary Kubiak effect, and Gary not being in the building anymore and specifically calling the plays? But like, I was looking at, because Dalvin was unbelievable at Lambeau last year. The last game, he's played against the Packers, nearly 230 total yards, 4 touchdowns. And I'm just looking at some of those long plays. Or back in 2019, he had a 70-something yard touchdown run at Lambeau. And I'm looking at the way that they utilized Garrett in some of those situations, and I'm like, maybe they're not always playing to his strengths so far this year.
Absolutely. Going back a little bit here, we were transitioning in, and now we're transitioning out a little. But I'm going to bring us back is Rick Spielman, right? Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer. Obviously, Zimmer, I think we can all probably attest, he's probably on the hot seat right now, just given the dynamics of where we're at right now at 4-5. How hot is Rick's seat? You see some misses here, and then all of a sudden now we have Cam Bynum playing well, and we have James Lynch coming in and playing productive. And all of a sudden now some of these mid-round guys are being productive in spot opportunities. So now it's like, okay, well, Rick, you were struggling, but especially with first-round picks, but now some of these guys are hitting. So how hot is his seat for our fans here? I'd just like to know that.
I mean, I think it's relatively hot. Now, he has survived some stuff. Like, there's some stuff behind the scenes going back to, I can't recall if it was 2017, 2018, 2016, a few years ago, where he survived a nice little firestorm, and I don't need to go back through it all. I didn't really put much out at the time. I've insinuated a few things the last few years, but bottom line is he survived something that, they could have cut the cord then on Rick. And so, I mean, that tells you, him and the Wilfs have a really tight relationship. He's still under contract for multiple years. You're right. Darrisaw's a first-round pick. That looks like a hit. The fourth-round pick, the kid from Iowa State, that looks like a hit. Yeah, some of these kids are coming along very nicely, which is a nice little reflection on Rick. He's been operating as if, now, to me, you work your ass off until you're told otherwise. But, he's been to a college game just about every weekend, the last few weekends. It's not like he has to physically go to these college games to scout in person, but he has. He's been to a number of college games so far this year. So he's focused on, I'm just telling you, Ryan, like, he's focused on, hey, I'm going to be in charge of our draft come next April. But we need to see how the rest of the year certainly plays out. If they end up missing the playoffs, I have a hard time believing the entire regime is back next year. They can't do that. The Wilfs are well aware of all the expectations this year, both with them, with the fan base, others in the building. They couldn't just go with the status quo.
I had a question for you, Doogie. You touched on Kenny Nwangwu and the offense in general. Clint Kubiak, you'd mentioned earlier, like last season, we obviously had his dad, Gary, running the offense. The offense looks not completely different, but vastly different this year than it does from his dad's offense. Do you know any insight into, like, does Clint view that as like needing to try to be different than his dad so that he can create his own path? Like, any ideas into why Clint decided to go a different route and what the offense should be, the direction the offense should go rather than the explosive play action offense that we saw from Gary in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question. I will tell you, Andrew Dinoco, the quarterback's coach, he's been more involved in recent weeks. Specifically, my sense is last week. I had a couple people tell me that. I mean, Clint still leans on Gary a ton. Like, why wouldn't you lean on your dad? A guy that's won the Super Bowl. So he still leans on Gary a ton. It's not like Clint isn't talking shop with Gary. They're talking all the time. So I don't have a great answer for you, Myles. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
Why we haven't seen more bootleg and moving Kirk out of the pocket and some more screenplays and some of last year's offense, propelled them to number 4 total offense in the NFL. I don't have a great answer for you. I can't actually. It still leans on his dad. Hell, so maybe we'll see a little shift here coming.
2015 and at number 2, 2015. Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, like I said, this offense has been hot and cold, and it's looked great, and then it's looked awful. And obviously, I love seeing that aggressiveness in that second half last week, giving Jefferson those opportunities to make those 50-50 balls, going for it on 4th and 2 when you could have easily punted. I mean, these are the types of moves that win games versus losing games, in my opinion. Doogie, I really.
Second short, like, heat of the moment, I would have kicked the field goal. Now, it's possible Greg Joseph makes the field goal, you go up 10, you end up winning the game. But, like, heat of the moment, my first guess was, I'm putting Greg Joseph on the field. I'm taking the field goal. But against the worst-ranked run defense in the NFL, I suppose good call. Give the ball to 33 and let him get you 3 yards there and wrap up the game that way.
I wonder if
going for the win right there.
I wonder if they're up 3 instead of 7 if they would have kicked it just to out of fear because of where they're on the field. But that's a good point.
I think they still would have gone for it. I think they would have. I think they would have said, you know what,
they were ready to.
We can get 2 against that run defense.
Absolutely. Well, I know that, we only had you for a short amount of time. The second half has just started for the Wolves. I know you got a show to prep for in about an hour and a half here. So any last little nuggets, any bombs that you want to drop for us before you head out?
Well, I mean, I told Judd yesterday, but Zim brought it up this morning that Michael Pierce is not undergoing any sort of immediate surgery. There is hope that he will be back this year. Anthony Barr's knee, I was told weeks ago it's a chronic issue, and we're seeing the last of Anthony Barr in a Vikings uniform. Now, do I think he's played his final game in a Vikings uniform? No. I mean, he was out there on the practice field today. We had a camera there. I saw the video when it came back to our shop. He was moving around okay. So I anticipate seeing Anthony Barr back in the field as soon as this Sunday. Like, I think he plays against the Packers, but that knee is going to be an issue the rest of the way. And with a reworked contract, I just have a hard time seeing a scenario where Anthony Barr is back in purple next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a good draft, I guess. If you're trying to replace a very capable and athletic linebacker like him, there's a lot of talent out there this year, which, again, you don't want to go out and say that, but I guess that's the nature of the business. So.
And I'll add one more. I was with Patrick Peterson on Monday at a Lutheran church in Eagan. He was doing a turkey giveaway, just a few days ahead of Thanksgiving, obviously. And I found him to be pretty genuine when I was asking him about, hey, is the plan for you to have one of these turkey drives, turkey giveaways, partnering with a local food shelf? Is the plan to do this again in 2022, in 2023? And I thought he was being genuine. And we talked a little bit off camera too, where, if it can get worked out, and hey, again, we don't even know who's going to be making the calls, but that Patrick Peterson really likes it here, that if there, is a possibility, we can debate whether it makes sense to pay a 32-year-old cornerback next year pretty good money. But I can tell you, Patrick Peterson has really, really enjoyed his time here in Minnesota. And if it can work out, he would like to be here next year.
I mean, as long as it doesn't cost too much, I'm all for it. I mean, I think he's played relatively well, considering, and obviously he's not what he was. I don't think he's $9 million a year worth quality right now. But if you can get him at a good deal, provide veteran leadership, and it's still relatively high quality play for a cornerback too, I think that's not a bad option for us to go.
He's a good dude. Yeah, I mean, you can't pay him 9 or 10 million, but I mean, he's been now. Look at who we're comparing him to, but he's been by far their best cover corner this year. It's just unfortunate that with a 31-year-old, you get a hamstring injury. That's of course going to be a multi-week injury. Just cornerback hamstring in your 30s, like you're not going to bounce back in a week. So he misses the 3 games. I anticipate he'll be back on Sunday against Green Bay, but just a good dude. Like I could tell just the way he was hands-on, interacting with people there to pick up, the families in need, them picking up their Thanksgiving meals, just the way he was interacting with them. There was somebody from a PR firm that was helping out. I mean, he knew her by her first name, and just the way he interacted. You can tell. I've been doing this long enough. I can read body language, and you hear stories too. And I've always heard really good things about Patrick Peterson. I was with Michael Floyd a few weeks ago. He's coaching wide receivers over at Concordia St. Paul. And he spent time in Arizona, and so they have some mutual friends. He told me good things about Patrick Peterson. Through some mutual connections with Larry Fitzgerald Jr. I heard a lot of good things about Patrick Peterson. Tyrone Carter and Patrick Peterson from the same high school in Florida. So Tyrone. So just when the Vikings signed him, I had heard just a bunch of good things, and so to hear all those things many months ago, seeing those things come to fruition, talk turning into action, really cool to see. So I know he's a really good dude. So I root for storylines. I root for stuff to talk about, write about. For me, selfishly, I'd love to see Pat P back next.
That's fantastic. That's great. That's good to hear. It's always good to see those players living up to the hype of being a good person, like you're hearing from sources or whatnot. So I love to hear that. Well, again, I appreciate your time, Doogie.
I never claim to be an expert. I lean on, doing this 25 years now in town, you end up, stumbling into a lot of people, developing relationships. And so I lean on the experts. Like, I don't claim to be an expert. You won't hear me talk very often about, X's and O's and, scheme this and, the all 22 that. I mean, that's just not my area of expertise. I'll lean on others who can give me good information. And so, yeah, on Peterson, it was all just A+.
That's awesome. Love it. Love to hear it. And again, if he's half as good of a man as you are, he's got to be a pretty great guy. So again, I really appreciate your time, Doogie. It's always a pleasure having you on. I would love to get you back on near the end, or even right after the season, to kind of get your takeaways from, the season and how it progressed from now till then. So you're welcome anytime you want. But whenever you can fit us in, we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Ryan. Yeah, I mean, you guys go every Wednesday, pencil me in for December 15th or December 22nd. Let's do it again in a month. And please don't overrate me. I promise. You talk to my wife, you talk to my kids, they will not tell you that I'm any sort of, star or whatever terminology you use. So I promise, please don't. I hope Matt's okay too. I was corresponding with Matt via Twitter direct message. I hope everything's okay in his world.
Yeah, I haven't heard much from him, but I'm sure things are okay. He typically does actually message Myles and I often when there is something of worry. So I hopefully everything's good.
Good. All right, boys. Well, have a good rest of your show, and we'll connect here in a few weeks.
All right.
Thanks so much, dude.
Okay. Take it easy, gentlemen. See ya.
Dave. All right. Always a pleasure having Doogie on. I hope the listeners got to enjoy some of those nuggets and content there. We're just going to go into the rest of the show here, talk a little Vikings football from our perspective here. So, Myles, I'm going to lean on you heavily here. Dave, obviously chime in as well with your takes here. Just quick recap. I know, Dave, I can't remember. I was real busy last night. Did we have a show last night?
No, we did not. We have been 0-4 this week.
So we're the first show. We're the first show of the
Yes.
week. So,
Yep.
to all our faithful listeners, because I know Mary, I know G-Mac's always here, Joseph's always here. I see Justin in the comments. I've seen him here quite a bit. They're used to hearing all of this content and all these takes already. So we actually get a fresh start on this show this week. So Myles, could you give me a recap of just this last weekend? What are some of the positive takeaways? Was this an impressive win? Give me some insights here.
Yeah, I think to start, I view it as an impressive win. I say that because two things. I think the Vikings went into this game knowing that they wanted to have an explosive offense, and I think having that mindset and then following through with that mindset from a coordinator, head coach, and quarterback standpoint, that's where you're going to win football games. And so to see them follow through with that was great to see. The other part to me, though, the Vikings matched up a lot better against the Chargers than I think I originally thought. Again, looking back at like the way the Vikings run their offense, specifically on offense, the Chargers, just like with Brandon Staley, like he was with the Rams, they're okay giving up a little bit on the ground because their plan is to make sure that they don't give up much in the air. Well, they gave up quite a bit in the air to go with the Vikings' continuous and consistent success on the ground. So a little bit of that game plan and the overall like matchup from that standpoint was a really good fit for the Vikings against a good young Chargers team. So, and then the one point I've heard a lot of people say across, Vikings Twitter and different podcasts and beat reporters and things is Mike Zimmer out coached and out schemed and outwitted Brandon Staley. And going into it, I'm not saying Zimmer shouldn't have been expected to do that, but everything we've heard from Brandon Staley leading up to the game was how much of a forward thinker he is, how much of he leans into the analytics and leans into being aggressive. He did the opposite. He kind of pulled a Mike Zimmer this week. At least from what we've seen from Mike Zimmer this year, is he pulled a lot more of the lean back and kind of expect my defense to bail me out a little bit more rather than my offense. And he wasn't as aggressive, didn't go for, fourth downs, some of those things the way you would typically, at least what we've seen the Chargers do even earlier in the year. So I thought Zimmer did a great job. Saying we need to win it. Besides just this being a must-win game, Zim went into it saying we're going to go all out and we're going to put the foot to the throats of the Chargers, and they did that. And that last drive specifically on offense really showed that.
They definitely were more aggressive, and we need to see more of that this week.
Well, they got their best player involved. I mean, when you get JJ involved, Justin Jefferson involved, that's when you're going to be successful. So, Adam Thielen did his thing. He had a few good plays as well, and Dalvin Cook was solid on the ground. But it was Justin Jefferson. It was the Justin Jefferson show, and Kirk threw a lot of really good passes and decided on in key situations, because the one thing that you haven't seen from this Vikings offense either is them converting or even attempting to convert the second or third and medium to longs. They usually throw behind the sticks, short of the sticks, and those things. And Kirk and the receivers were getting open downfield, and they were taking those chances. And so, I don't think some of that is sustainable, because when you see the amount of 3rd and 15s and 3rd and 20s that they converted on Sunday, that's not sustainable. So I wouldn't go into every week expecting them to have a game plan for converting those, but to see them able to do it consistently on Sunday was really great, and that's what drove the win.
What was nice about that
was
when they got stuck in those situations, and they got stuck in those situations mainly because of Oliudo
holdings. Yep.
And you got to think of an offensive holding as a sack, because that's basically what it is.
Any offensive holding offensive penalty essentially is a sack.
Right, and but what changed last week versus what we had seen all before that was they were throwing to the sticks rather than throwing the 2-yard check down and hoping for 4 yards.
Right. Right.
And even if you're not down, in a second and long, second 15, second 20, third and 20, like that big, even though we didn't convert, we got ourselves in position to go for it on fourth down to ice the game, right? Is regardless if you're in that type of yardage or if you're in a second and 10 or even a second and 8 or third and 8, is you still got to push it downfield. And when you do that with the receivers we have, it's going to reap rewards more often than not. Even if it does reap rewards 50% of the time, that's a huge win, especially when these guys are playing one-on-one battles or two-on-one battles in a lot of cases. I think one of my bigger takeaways for this game really was how we were able to limit Justin Herbert. I mean, he had been playing well. He's been very high quality quarterback all year. He had a couple, bad games throughout the year, but for the most part, he's been high quality. And he's out here looking like, I hate to say it, but he kind of looked like Kirk, like when Kirk's doing the check down Charlie stuff, right? Like he, again, making impressive throws, making plays when he needs to make plays, but also just checking it down. He checked it down more than Kirk did. I mean, and it was good to see, kind of watch another team who has a promising quarterback go through that, because of course I like the way our quarterback played this week, which again hasn't been as often as I'd like this year. Not to say Kirk's been playing poorly this year. The PFF numbers are going to tell you he's played well, right? Again, he hasn't been aggressive, and we were aggressive this week, which was fun.
The PFF numbers tell you he's doing what he's asked to do. And he's accomplishing that.
Yes.
If he's asked to throw a 2-yard check down and he does that well, he gets scored well.
Agreed, Joseph.
Right? If he's asked to throw a 50-yard bomb every other play, he's not doing that because he's not being aggressive. He's not asked to do that. They record, they grade what he's asked to do. That's why he's grading so high.
Well, and you see
and again, like Myles, Well, like Myles has said multiple times in other shows and in our group chats and whatnot, PFF's not grading that he didn't pass to a guy deep who was open, like Justin Jefferson. They're grading on, okay, did he complete the pass? And did it go for positive yards, negative yards, whatever? It's a plus, neutral, minus type grade, and he's not going to go negative because he completed a pass in the flat for 3 yards versus attempting a pass 25 yards on the field to Justin Jefferson, who's likely open, right, or could have a one-on-one opportunity. But I digress. Real quick, Myles, would you consider this an impressive win?
Yeah, that's how I started off my comment. I thought it was an impressive win because I felt that they had commanded the game, even though the game was close. At least for me, I don't know how everybody else is feeling. I normally don't feel this way with Vikings games, but especially this year, I felt comfortable on Sunday. It just kind of felt like they had a little bit of control. Yes, they almost gave it away at the end. Like, let's say they don't convert on that fourth down, maybe the Chargers get a chance to tie that game up. Whatever, it doesn't even matter. Like, I felt the way that game went, it still felt like the Vikings were in control, whether they had the ball or whether they're on defense. So it was great to see them, instead of always needing the defense to try to win it or lose it for them at the end, they said, let's let our offense be that driving force. So I think they should let's hope they do that moving forward, because that's what made it more impressive to me. It was how they won the game and the decisions they decided to make to force themselves to win that football game, not just hope that they would win the game because they, didn't make a mistake or what have you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Very good. Let's get to this week. I know it's a big week. We're playing the Packers. What are your keys to victory?
Yeah, I mean, so it'll be a little bit of a different dynamic for the Vikings defensively, because obviously you got Aaron Rodgers, who's apparently got a hurt toe. He's coming off COVID, and the Packers, like Seattle, they didn't look all that good on Sunday. So they're coming. Yes, the Packers won, but they're coming off a situation where it wasn't all that of an impressive win. Maybe who knows how they're going to bounce back. But also they're going to be without, in my opinion, their second best offensive weapon in Aaron Jones. And so what Aaron Jones does is, Aaron Jones isn't just a really good running back between the tackles, and he's a really good receiver for them as well. So he's the guy that they're going to miss. I think AJ Dillon's going to step in and do a good job because he's that big physical type of running back that the Vikings are used to having, and Adrian Peterson's and those things. But I think AJ Dillon will be able to handle himself just more so because they have a good run offense, and the Vikings' run defense hasn't been that great. So I'd expect him to do pretty well, but I don't think they're going to be as multiple with AJ Dillon the way they can be with Aaron Jones, which is a big deal for the Vikings defense. And so there's that, and then obviously, what's the plan for Davante Adams? The Vikings haven't been able to cover Davante Adams, and I think basically since his rookie year when he was dropping everything, and now he's in my opinion, the best receiver in the league. But what are they going to do to stop him? Because he's the guy that always seems to kill them, and always seems to he gets open no matter how they cover him. So what's their plan? So if Patrick Peterson's back, is he ready to shadow? Is he going to shadow? Do they put do they double him, triple him? What's the plan for Davante Adams? And then obviously Aaron Rodgers. Depending on how the crowd is, because the one thing we know in US Bank Stadium is the split of fans is probably too close to 50-50 than what it should be. But that's how it is. There's a lot of Packers fans in Minnesota. So how can the Vikings keep the fans engaged and going for the Vikings side so that they can keep Aaron? Because the one thing Aaron Rodgers does pretty well, and as he has in Minnesota, is he does a really good job of thriving off of or even quieting the crowd in Minnesota. So can the Vikings do enough to force Rodgers, off his rhythm and off his game, and so that the fans aren't engaged for him and they're engaged for the Vikings and us. So there's a few of those things. And then how is this Aaron Rodgers' last hurrah, coming to US Bank, coming to Minnesota as a Packer? So I think those things are kind of fun storylines to keep an eye on, and we'll see how it goes. But I think the Vikings, the way they're riding off of the game, I want to see them come off of Sunday and continue down that path, because the one thing we haven't seen against good teams is after a win, we haven't seen them decide to go play a really good football, start to finish football game and beat another good football team. So can they string together, some games? And so this is a perfect opportunity to do it. The one thing I do love, though, about divisional games is they're so unpredictable. So I think it's really, that's what I love about it too. Besides hating the Packers, I love how unpredictable it could be. So I'm hoping, the Vikings can, maybe show the Packers what's up.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a season ticket holder since we've been at US Bank, and this is going to be my first Packer game. Admittedly, I could make too much money off I can make too much money off those tickets to not sell them typically, but I'm taking the wife out to the game, and I think we're gonna. I mean, she's louder than I am, and I'm pretty loud individuals. I think we'll be doing our part to kind of disrupt Rodgers here a little bit. I look at this game plan, and you take a look at their defense. Their defense has been playing pretty well all year long. Now, they have some injuries that have popped up. I hear Alexander may or may not come back this year or this week. I think he's trending on the not side, but again, I need to do a little bit more research, and obviously more time will tell. But they're out Preston Smith. Rashawn Gary's beat up a little bit right now. They have an awesome safety duo in Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. It's always tough to play against, a good, strong safety combo like that. And their other corners have stepped up in spots. So I'm interested to watch that key matchup of, can we keep that momentum rolling with Justin Jefferson and hopefully getting Adam Thielen a little bit more involved this week. And you know what? I'm putting out an MIA right now for KJ Osborne. I haven't seen him in 4 weeks. He's been MIA. So I want to see these guys get, a little bit more involved in terms of the wide receiver 2 and 3, as well as keeping Jefferson at that peak utilization that we did this week. And then I also, I want to make sure that we're, again, staying aggressive. Obviously, we have a strong run game. Dalvin Cook seemed to be a little bit more like himself last week, which was good to see. It seems like maybe he's finally beyond that injury right now. So if we can get that whole mojo going, do you think we can really disrupt this defense that's been playing pretty well this year?
Yeah, and that's the one thing that does worry me though is like most divisional games when the Vikings and like with the Packers with LaFleur and like with Mike Zimmer, like they face each other so many times, you kind of got the book on each other. When there's that consistency at the coaching and like the philosophy standpoint, there's consistency, so they kind of got the book on each other. So can the Vikings come up with some new wrinkles that maybe the Packers wouldn't expect? Same way that you would expect the Packers to do the same to the Vikings. Are they going to come up with some wrinkles on their defense that the Vikings haven't seen? So, and then you flip that, can the Vikings defense come up with something that Rodgers hasn't seen? So, that's the hope. Like you want to find new wrinkles, but you want to find them at the right times. You want to start creating a little bit more of that level of uncertainty as you prepare. So that's the hope.
Well, Mike Zimmer is 1-3 versus Matt LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't got the best of him. It was that game up in Green Bay last year that he got the best of him in the 40-mile-an-hour winds. Let's hope. Now, heads up, what is it? Cousins is 3-1 when playing the Packers from the Vikings. So there's a possibility they could figure each other out.
So then Zim's 3-1.
Well, which should be. But I don't think LaFleur. LaFleur's only been there the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So
this is his third year.
But they do have some injuries out on that defense, and that defense has been good this year. That's what's surprising for Green Bay is the defense has been that good, and
they put a lot of resources into it.
But hopefully you got Whitney Merciless out, Rashawn Gary out, and I'm trying to remember who else out was possible on the defense. But they have an opportunity this Sunday, and they need to take this opportunity by, grab the reins and drive it down Green Bay's throat to establish that, hey, we're here for this season.
Absolutely. So I couldn't agree more. And how dare you? That's fantastic. That would be fantastic if that actually happens. Well, you know what? I have one more thing to talk about, but we're getting late into the show. How dare you brings up predictions. So why don't we hit up lightning round right now? We'll go some over under buy sell headline and head into prediction from there. So Dave, can you cue the music?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So we're just going to go into over under right away here. I'm going to actually start with Dave just because I want Dave to get a specific question. I'm just going to go every other here.
Yeah. So
Dave, over this season, Aaron Rodgers is averaging about 241 pass yards per game. So the over under here is 250 yards against the Vikings this week.
My inclination is over, but I'm trying to think of who we have rushing him up the middle. We got both linebackers because I expect Barr to play. I would 250?
250.
Under. I mean, our secondary isn't as good as I wanted to, but I expect Patrick Peterson to step up his game this week. He does know what it means to be a rivalry game. I'm going under.
Love it. Love to hear it. All right, Myles. AJ Dillon. I think he put up 122 all-purpose yards last week. Between him and Aaron Jones, they're kind of averaging about 160 total yards per game. But since he's going to cede some carries to Patrick Taylor, I think is his name. AJ Dillon, 125 total yards. Over under.
That's a tough one. I don't know what Dillon's going to be like as a full-time starter. I'm going to say under, but I think it's going to be closer than it should be, than I'd like to be.
Sure. So you guys are both taking the under, meaning we're holding this offense because we're holding the offense, passing offense to under 250.
I would have taken the over for the passing, but that's just me.
Hey, you didn't get to choose though. You didn't get to choose.
You're right.
You got to remember, we also have the fans in the stands. I know it turns, a lot of it turns green, but our fans are loud and they do mess with Aaron Rodgers' head.
Let's do it. All right, Dave, Viking sacks. We've averaged 1.5 sacks over the last 4 games against them. So I'm going to leave it right at that number. Do we get over or under 1.5
Over, because we're averaging more sacks per game than that right now.
Okay, I love the quick decisiveness. All right, Myles, and I think this is an important one to you. Last game, Kirk hit a 7.5 average depth of target last game. His average for the year has been 6.8. Over or under 7 for his average depth of target?
I'm gonna say under. That's where I need to see a little bit more of a sample size from Kirk, from a consistency standpoint. Him and Clint on that. So I'm gonna say under.
Under. Okay, so we basically are going to have a defensive slugfest. That's kind of what you guys are thinking here a little bit. I love to hear it. I mean, if it leads to a win, I don't really care how we get it. So, all right, buy, sell here. Myles, I'll let you roll with this one first. Buy, sell. AJ Dillon being a legitimate starter.
I'll buy that. I think he is a legitimate starter. I think he's not Derrick Henry, but I guarantee you that when they drafted him, that was kind of their thought process, like big-bodied, big physical kind of guy that can run. Again, that he's not Derrick Henry. I'm not putting him in that category, but I think there's that type of like bowling ball, bounce off, the guy that breaks tackles type of ability.
Awesome. So they'll have a tough decision. Well, probably not that tough of a decision, but they got him for 2 more years under contract. Aaron Jones just signed a big deal, so they'll have a 2-headed monster for a little while here yet, at least. Dave, buy, sell Cam Bynum.
Oh, without a doubt, buy. And Mike Zimmer was asked today if he may be incorporated into the defense this weekend, and he's talking about, yes, possibly that can happen. There's a lot of things he likes about Cam Bynum. He also said there's special things that Harrison does. I think they can combine it. You could see a big nickel type deal, or you could see a dime. So I very much expect, and I would buy that in a heartbeat. We see more Cam Bynum.
I hope you're right. We just signed Harrison Smith to a long contract. Xavier Woods is on a 1-year deal. It would be nice to try to keep all 3 of them, actually, and see if you can incorporate some sort of 3-headed monster up there. But I do like the development in these last 2 games of Bynum, especially from what we saw with him in preseason. So I'd like to keep that train rolling. Myles, Mason Cole. I know Doogie just kind of talked about that a little bit. Do you buy, sell Mason Cole maybe being a solution for us long-term at center?
I can't get on board with that yet. just like too small of a sample size, and Mason Cole was not very good in Arizona. And maybe that was a scheme thing. Maybe he does fit a little bit more of what this scheme does than what Arizona was trying to do. But no, I just can't. This is his 4th year in the league. Kind of like Bradbury. We were all seeing how poorly he played in Arizona. They saw how badly he played in Arizona to the point where they traded for Rodney Hudson. So I'm not saying he can't improve and can't be that guy, but I can't get on board yet.
Yeah, but wasn't it in Arizona he played guard better than he played center?
He only had like 5 games at guard. So
yeah, true.
Like total. So yes, maybe he played a little bit better, but the Vikings didn't bring him here to play guard.
Correct.
Backup center, and hey, you know what? He fulfilled his purpose. We traded, I think, like a 6 for him, and he's fulfilled his purpose. He's actually been better than our starter in the 2-spot starts, and who knows? Maybe he'll be here long term, maybe not. You're not ready to buy that. I understand. I'm kind of the same way. I'm not ready to buy fully into him, but I think that I would definitely like to monitor that, put that on my ticker going forward on my stocks here. So, all right, Dave, last buy sell before we get into headline here. Kirk's aggressiveness in the fourth quarter with a lead.
Oh, by far, buy that. He needs to continue to do that because it has proven.
But do you think
successful.
he will? Is the operative here? Will he continue that?
Yes, I do think he'll. At least in the fourth quarter, especially coming from behind, he gets aggressive. Yes, I think he will continue that. I hope. Kirk Cousins is very much the roller coaster. Hopefully we've been through that dip and now we're back up on the incline and will hopefully peak during the playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl.
Love the optimism. Love it. All right, so we're going to go into headline game. Since Myles isn't here every week, I'll let him pick between the two here. So, Myles, if you're not familiar, I know you've watched the show, but I don't know if you've watched all the way through the headline game. But basically, I'm going to give you two scenarios where you wake up, read the morning paper. It says, one of these two headlines. You tell me what happened in the game to cause that headline to happen. So the two you can choose from is another diamond in the rough, or here we go again, ...
I get to choose. Oh, man. I'm going to say another diamond in the rough because I want to be optimistic. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right, but what happened in the game to cause that headline? Did we have another player blow up out of nowhere? What happened in the game to cause that headline?
I got a diamond in the rough's hard to say. Like Cameron Bynum has a pick six, maybe something like that, or like a James Lynch has a strip sack, something like that.
Okay. So a big defensive play from a young player. Love it.
Young,
all right,
unproven
Dave.
player. Yeah.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. What happened?
Vikings win, getting all the fans' hopes up. Here we go again. Make sure you reserve yourself because they're going to break our hearts later.
As always. All right. So we made it to the end of the show here. We got predictions. To give just a quick highlight on scores here, Dave, you might have the accurate ones. Correct me if I'm wrong. I lost last week. I said we were going to lose the Chargers. So I have me at 6-3. Matt was the only one to win last week. I believe, and he is now sitting at 4-5. Basically, whatever the Vikings record is, that's what he is because he always picks the Vikings. Dave, I think you're also at 4-5, trying to take the sacrifice last week.
I was
to jinx the Chargers, but that does unfortunately move you to 4-5.
I'll take it.
And then I think our guests are sitting at 5-4 right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Matt, obviously not with us tonight, but we're going to go in the true Matt nature here. I'm going to predict for him because he didn't send me his prediction unless he sent it to you, Dave.
No.
Nope. Okay. So obviously he's going to have the Vikings win, and in Matt-like fashion, it's going to be a blowout win. We're going to say 35-17 because I think that was somewhat like his score for the Chargers game.
Gotcha.
All right, Myles, what's your prediction?
I'm going to go 24-20 Vikings.
Boo.
Ooh, I like it. 4-point win for the purple at home.
I got it. I got to keep the optimistic train rolling.
Love it. Dave, what do we got?
I am going Vikings. I do think they keep this rolling. I think they keep the offense pumping. Figure 31, say 24 Vikings.
31-24, 7-point win for the purple from Dave. Man. Well, typically like to be realistic on this show. I don't always like
you
to
mean
just
negative.
Be a homer.
Go ahead.
No, negative. No, just realistic. But, you know what? They showed me quite a bit last week. I'm unfortunately, or not unfortunately, unlike Myles, I'm not 100% sold into the AJ Dillon train. I think he's a quality back, but I don't think he's what Aaron Jones can bring to that offense. They don't have a secondary back to provide Aaron Jones-like abilities with Kylan Hill also under the IR.
That's all things I said earlier. I said AJ Dillon won't be able to fulfill those things.
But you did say that you buy him to be a long-term starter. Is all I was trying to say. I don't buy him to be anything more than a change of pace, bulldozer is all I kind of see him as a long-term career trajectory. And I hope he's more. I mean, not for the Packers, but I never want any player to just be bad in the league, right? I want everyone to have success, just not on that team. With all that being said, I think that our defense is going to disrupt Rodgers just enough for us to squeak out a win here. I'm going to say 20-17.
Ooh.
Low scoring game. Vikings win.
Hey, I want to let y'all know I pinned How Dare You's post. He says Zimmer will be drenched in Gatorade at the end of the game.
Ooh, that's a good prediction. Shout out to all the fans all the viewers here that are watching today. Joseph, I know you mentioned a couple things that I need to touch base on. Yes, our Oklahoma's kicker is usually really great. He completely shit the bed this last week. So yes, we must have passed. I must have passed the kicking woes from the Vikings over to them during that game. Also, yes, I will be at the stadium on Sunday morning. I think I'm going to get there nice and early. Wife and I got a wedding, so we're going to stay overnight in a hotel. Get up and tailgate nice and early with some friends. We're going to have a great time. So we're going to be there. How dare you? A couple just solid comments throughout the night. Much appreciated. Mary, as always, I appreciate you, all the optimism you bring to the show. Justin, fantastic, interactions here tonight. I think you provided a lot of great content to the chat room. Appreciate you joining in, listening in, and all the rest of you. Really appreciate everyone joining in and making sure that you're the lifeblood, the lifeline of what this show is, and we stay on for you guys. So we really appreciate you joining in each and every week. Hopefully you tune in, I think, Thursday night, for at halftime of the Thursday night game.
No, unfortunately not. Eric Thompson has a procedure he's getting done, something about a lobotomy or something like that. And he will not be there, so there will be no Viking hot takes this week. However, as usual, I've already got the notes. Darren and I will be talking Saturday for Two Old Bloggers as we break down the numbers and exactly how this game should go and how the Vikings will pull off a victory come Sunday. Baby, it's Packers week.
And honestly, guys, real quick, Dave, before I'm going to cut you off real quick. If you haven't watched Two Old Bloggers on Saturday afternoon, you have to check it out. I've been watching it a little bit more now over the last couple weeks. Graphics are fantastic. Dave goes into his full bag of tricks to make some really great content on the show. They have a lot of great insights. You definitely got to check it out. I know Saturday afternoons, tough time. You got family, you got stuff. Throw on your headphones and even just listen in. I mean, it's really a great show. Central. I think you guys will enjoy it. 4:00 Central. And then, of course, we'll be, on right after the game as well, as you typically are with the myriad of different people we have for the final score. First and the very first after-game content out there for the fans. So make sure you check into that before you go into the Vikings fan line to either congratulate or ask for Mike Zimmer said. Think that's all. So, Dave, what do we always say?
SKOL! Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. SKOL, everybody.